Hello everyone, greetings to one and all. I welcome you all to my new series, SAP Technical Tutorial for both ABAP and ABAP and HANA. So through this series, we are going to discuss about some of the key programming concepts, certain key logics that is being used in the program, about new syntaxes that are introduced in the modern ABAP programming, so whatnot. We are going to discuss about all key programming concepts. As in the first episode, I'm going to discuss about an elemental concept in our programming. So this here in this session, we are going to discuss about the key programming events in ABAP reports. So what are events in a report? Events helps us in lots of ways. The first main way is they help in modularizing the program. They help us in aligning the program properly, and which is very useful for our later purpose scalability and maintenance as well. They help in define and in controlling the flow of program. They also serve as the trigger points for the code logics that is written under them. And the events they differ between a classical report and a model pool report. So we will discuss about the difference between these events on the classical reports and model pool reports in the coming slides. So in short, events plays a vital role for us to give a proper authorization towards the execution of the program. You will understand it more when we get on to the hands-on part in my upcoming videos. In this session, I'm going to explain you the theoretical part of both the events that of both classical report and model pool report events. First, we are going to see about the classical report key events. In case of a classical reports, there are plenty of events. However, I'm going to discuss about some of the key events which are very critical for your programming knowledge. The first event I would like to discuss is the load of program. This is otherwise called as an implicit event. Whether you define it explicitly in the program or not, this is the event that gets triggered when your program is executed. They help us in loading the program logic or the program code lines onto the processor, and from there the normal execution begins. So initialization is one of the first event that is triggered before the selection screen is displayed, if at all there is a selection screen. Initialization is the first event that gets triggered. So why do we use this initialization event? We can declare or we can initialize all the variables that are part of our program. Like for example, I have defined a local class in my report programs. So if I want to initialize my local class, or in other words, if I want to instantiate my local class, I will do that in my initialization event. The at selection screen output, they helps in preparing the screen. Usually at selection screen output event gets triggered just before a screen is getting displayed. Now, for example, I'm making any elemental change in my selection screen, like I'm toggling between a radio button. So at the end of each of these changes that I perform on the radio button, I expect the screen to get changed. Like I chose the second radio button. Now I want the screen to reflect to reflect with the second radio button checked. So this is an action that's performed on the screen element. So whenever there is an action that's performed on a screen element, we expect the screen to be modified, and at this point, the at selection screen output is triggered. So any changes to your selection screen is reflected through this at selection screen output. Whenever you enter any data in the selection screen and you expect the data part of your screen to be validated, that's where at selection screen event will get triggered. So at selection screen output will help in screen elements. At selection screen will help in the data that's input. The start of selection is a default event that gets triggered when none of the events are defined explicitly. Like if I have not defined any of the events above, or if I don't have a selection screen at all, then my start of selection is the first event that gets defaulted. In this case, I don't even have to mention it explicitly. It's another implicit event when none of the screens are defined. So start of selection is a default event that gets triggered when none of the events are defined explicitly, and they are the event that gets triggered when we don't have a selection screen. So end of selection is one of the last event that gets triggered before the results of the report is being displayed. The reason for picking up these events are they are the vital events. They play they play a key role in majority of the programs that we develop. Okay, the hands-on part, or in other words, the demo explaining all these events, which event gets called first, which event gets toggled in between. All this will be explained in my upcoming videos. In the next slide, we're going to see about the module pool events. So here we have only 4 events. The first event is called as process before output. So this is the event that gets triggered when the T code is executed. As you know, module pool reports cannot be executed independently. We have to create a T code for them. So this is the report. This is the event that gets triggered when the T code is executed. They in fact help in initializing the screen components and the variables. I would, if I want to compare it with my classical report events, I would compare process before output to my at selection screen output event. The second event, process after output, is the event that gets triggered after an user action is performed on the screen. Okay, so this is somewhat similar to the at selection screen in my classical report events. The next is process on value request. This event helps in assigning the F1 functionality to the fields. Like whenever you perform F1 function on any field, they display a certain set of results. So this process on value request helps with that. Process on help request is another event that assists us with the F4 functionality to the fields. So these are the 4 events that belongs to module pool programming, and we have already seen the events for classical report programming. So both events of the different types of reports play a vital role, and they are very much important and significant in controlling the flow of program, in defining the logic and the flow of program. So with this, I would like to end this video, and in my next session, I'll be explaining the hands-on part or the demo on the classical report events. I would write a simple program and I will explain the flow of these events through the debugging tool. So I would recommend you to go through my other playlist videos where I'm dealing with debugging series, and I'm also explaining the data dictionary concepts. So there are several other playlists as part of the same channel. I recommend you to go through that. At least for the next session, if you don't have any debugging knowledge, I recommend you to go through my debugging series, because on the next session, the report events will be explained with the help of debugging knowledge. Thank you all, and see you soon on my next video. Peace and blessings to everyone.